The warband called it the Flatstone Run. Humans called it a trade road, but to the Orcs it was theirs, because nothing on it had ever stopped them, and things that cannot stop you belong to you. That was the first law of the warband. War Chief Borak had taught them this before they could hold axes. The world divided cleanly those who take, and those from whom things are taken. They had raided this stretch 11 times. The youngest among them, Ka, knew the ruts in the road by the sound of wagon wheels. He knew how the dust rose differently in dry season, how the outrider horses, short-legged brown, always brown, would mill anxiously when they smelled Orcs upwind. He knew how the merchant guards would form a rough ring around the cargo wagons and shout for courage they did not feel. He knew humans, or believed he did, which was a different thing, though he did not know it yet. On the morning of the 12th raid, Borak pointed from the ridge. Below them, a merchant train crawled along the road. 6 wagons, heavy laden, the wheels sank a little deeper in the soft earth. 4 outriders, perhaps 8 guards visible along the flanks, moving with the loose, tired gait of men who had been on the road too long and were thinking of their beds. 16 Orcs, armed properly. Easy meat, Borak said. He spoke as he always did, not as a boast, but as simple accounting, a farmer naming his harvest. The phrase needed no emphasis, because it needed no doubt. Easy meat. Gorvak laughed low and easy, rolling his shoulders. Ka breathed in the morning damp grass, horse, dry wagon canvas, the distant smoke of a cook. Fire the merchants had been foolish enough to light. By midday, he thought, they would be back in the hills with full packs and another story for the younger ones. The way the warband fought mattered for what followed. They moved on sound and scent and the read of a body, the way a guard shifted weight toward his dominant side, the micro-tremble in the hands of a man who knew he was about to die. They were not subtle. They were not meant to be. Their strength was the charge, the moment when the earth shook, and the prey understood what it had become. The freeze that hit every living thing, that half-second of locked muscle terror, was their true weapon as much as any blade. Every creature that had ever faced them froze. That was the first law of the living as they understood it. Fear comes before death. They knew this as they knew their own heartbeats. Borak signaled the sweep. The warband flowed through the tree line in 2 arcs, as quiet as Orcs on loose shale could be, which was not very quiet, but it had never needed to be. The outriders had not yet spotted them. The guards walked on, apparently tired. The wagons rolled. Ka thought about what he would eat that night. They broke from the trees 30 meters from the last wagon, screaming. What happened next did not fit into anything Ka knew. The human guards closest to them did not freeze. They did not turn with the stumbling panic of the surprised. They turned precisely in the same motion, as if the Orcs' scream were not a terror signal but a long-awaited command. Shields rose together. Feet set perfectly. Borak noticed first. His voice caught mid-word, a shout that never became language. The canvas on the last 3 wagons dropped. Not fell, dropped cleanly all at once. Inside were not goods. Inside were soldiers, packed tight, already moving before the canvas finished falling. Crossbows, spears braced along the wagon sides, angled outward. Light armor painted gray-brown, the color of the canvas. Ka realized the color of the road dust. They had vanished inside the wagons, and the Orcs had looked at those wagons 11 times and seen only cargo. Ka did not understand what he was seeing. His mind refused it. For half a step, 1 breath, he could not assemble the images into meaning. Wagons meant trade. Tired guards meant ease. Outriders meant a chase, not a war. Behind that, another wrongness unfolded. The outriders were already shifting to flank with a speed that said they had known exactly where to go long before any Orc showed his face. The freeze came, but not from the humans. It was Ka who froze. Borak roared for them to charge through. It was the right call. Hesitation in a charge was death, and they still outnumbered the visible soldiers. They did not know about the soldiers in the trees behind them. Those humans had been there all along, motionless, downwind, their shapes broken by rough, cut coverings the color of soil and crushed bark. The Orcs had passed within scent of them and smelled only forest. To the warband senses, those soldiers had been nothing, part of the world instead of things in the world. Humans had a word for this. Carr would learn it years later from a prisoner in a different raid. The man used it casually, the way one names a tool. Ambush. As though it was simply a kind of thing. A hammer for striking, fire for warmth, ambush for killing something before it knows it is in a fight. Carr survived because Gorvak seized him by his harness and dragged him behind a wagon wheel when the first volley came, and Carr had the sense to stay there. 7 orcs died in the opening exchange. Borak was among them. A crossbow bolt through the gap at his collarbone. He fell mid-stride, step unfinished. It looked wrong to Carr in a way he could not articulate. War chiefs did not die in incomplete motions. They were supposed to finish what they started. The warband broke. 4 orcs, Carr, Gorvak, and 2 others, regrouped on the far ridge, lungs burning, pride shredded. From the shadow of the pines, they watched the human soldiers move through the aftermath with the same quiet efficiency they had used to create it. Counting bodies, checking the fallen. One soldier knelt beside a breathing orc and called out rather than finishing the kill. Carr did not understand that either. There was one image he would never lose. Just before they fled entirely, in those last heartbeats on the ridge, Carr's gaze caught on the soldier who had called out. The man was young, even from a distance. Carr could read the looseness of a not yet weathered face. A junior fighter. The young man said something to the soldier beside him. A woman, taller, blade still out. She laughed. It was not the raw, wild laugh of blood heat. It was an easy laugh, the sound of someone whose expectations had been met exactly, whose careful design had unfolded correctly. She seemed satisfied, not surprised. For her, the fight had already been over before the orcs had fully run. She and her companions had finished the battle before it had begun. They had built the ending before building anything else. They had fashioned the scene. Tired guards, heavy wagons, lazy outriders, and waited inside it. The orcs had walked into that ending on their own feet, confident, calling it easy meat, and the humans had agreed in silence and fed that belief to them. The belief had killed 7 orcs that night. In the safety of the hills, Gorvak spat into the fire. Humans do not know how to fight honorably, he said. Carr stared into the flames and said nothing. Gorvak repeated himself, louder, because Carr did not answer. They do not fight the way we fight, Carr said at last. Cowardly. Gorvak growled. No, Carr said. Words failed him there. His thoughts were raw shapes without names, but their weight pressed on him all the same. The warband fought to win the fight. Those humans had fought to make the fight unnecessary. The orcs had entered a battle. The humans had constructed a place that looked like familiar road and routine, but the shape of it, the angles of canvas and color and scent, had all been bent toward one outcome. The orcs had stepped into a story whose ending had been written by someone else, and when the trap closed and bolts flew, Carr's mind had needed that half step to accept the reality he was standing in. They had decided the ending and then arranged everything around it. His people had no name for that. His culture had never needed one. Their language had plenty of words for courage and fury and the joy of a straightforward clash. It had no word for a laugh over a fight that had been finished in the mind before the first blade cleared its sheath. Carr thought of that laugh often. He suspected that woman had laughed that way before. He suspected she would again. He also suspected that, for a while, no orc warband would call the Flatstone Run easy meat again.